Welcome back to the Deep Dive. And hey, if you're joining us for the first time on the F1 Blogs channel, a huge welcome to you too. This is where we take, a whole stack of fascinating information, could be research, articles, insider chats, and really boil it down to those aha moments you're looking for. Basically, giving you a shortcut to being genuinely well-informed. Today, we're not just dipping a toe in, nope. We're diving headfirst into the high-octane, incredibly complex world of Formula One. Specifically, we're putting Aston Martin under the microscope, looking at their intriguing journey this season, and maybe even more importantly, the massive shifts, the huge challenges that are looming for everyone with the 2026 regulations.
It's a huge topic, a lot going on there.
Absolutely. And our deep dive today is built around some really fascinating discussion and analysis we've pulled straight from F1 Blogs itself. It gives us this rare, kind of insightful look behind the curtain of F1 development.
Yeah, the kind of stuff you don't always get from the main broadcasts.
Exactly. It's that nuanced analysis that makes you really rethink what you thought you knew about race weekend strategies. So our mission today is pretty clear. We want to cut through all the noise, help you understand the sophisticated, sometimes sort of counterintuitive strategies that are playing out, and ultimately just give you a really profound, well-rounded understanding of where this incredible, always changing sport is heading.
Sounds good. Let's get into it.
Okay, so let's unpack this. If you've been following F1 even, like casually this season, you've probably seen headlines, maybe heard whispers about Aston Martin. We're getting towards the end of the season now, only, 9 Grand Prix left under these current rules?
Right, the current technical regs.
And yet, they are still constantly testing different bits and pieces on the car, trying out the Imola floor against maybe the Silverstone floor, tweaking wings, messing with setups, almost every single practice session it seems.
Yeah, you see it on the timing screens, lots of different configurations being run.
From an outsider's view, or even, for a dedicated fan who isn't super deep in the tech weeds, this might seem, well, a bit puzzling. Maybe even tedious or tiring, like you see some people saying online.
I can see why it might look that way.
Does it mean they haven't actually found the key yet? The magic bullet for their car's performance puzzle? Are they just still kind of desperately searching for answers? It definitely feels like that sometimes, looking from the outside, like a team that's maybe a bit lost, throwing everything at the wall, hoping something sticks.
Yeah.
Especially with big changes coming.
But what's fascinating here is what looks like indecision, or maybe even them being a bit lost from the outside. It's actually a very calculated, incredibly strategic approach, deeply scientific, really. It is way more sophisticated than just, oh, they don't know what they're doing.
Okay, so not lost then.
No, not lost. This isn't about confusion. It's all about micro-optimizations, things tailor-made for the very specific challenges each different circuit throws at them. This is where the real engineering genius comes in. Recognizing that, say, the perfect setup for a high downforce track like Monaco is just wildly different from a low downforce tower track like Monza.
Right, completely different demands.
Exactly. And critically, that even subtle changes, like a slightly different floor design, can unlock a vital performance edge on one particular track, even if it's worse somewhere else. It's a team chasing surgical precision, not just raw speed.
So, okay, not a sign of being adrift, but more like a deliberate, almost surgical way of squeezing out every tiny bit of performance. Custom tailoring the car for each race. That's a really interesting way to put it. Can you maybe elaborate a bit on how they're doing that? How are Aston Martin's engineers adapting the car beyond just the usual setup tweaks we hear about?
Absolutely. So diving into those insights from F1 blogs, it confirms this constant testing of components like, say, swapping between the Imola floor and the Silverstone floor. It's not indecision at all. It is a deliberate, highly sophisticated strategy. Aston Martin is actively adapting their car config based on the tiny, specific characteristics of each individual racing circuit.
Wow, okay. So really granular stuff.
Yeah, think about it. They're looking at the nuanced differences in the track layout, the specific grip levels of the tarmac, the different corner speeds, the types of curbs they have to ride, even things like the expected ambient temperature and wind conditions for that specific weekend.
Right, all those variables.
And then they're making very precise choices about which floor, which wing, which suspension setup is going to deliver the maximum performance advantage for that specific environment.
It sounds like they're basically saying there is no one-size-fits-all solution. That's quite a profound shift from maybe a simpler way of thinking.
Exactly right. That's the core of it. This approach, it really highlights a deep understanding of how subtle aerodynamic differences behave in varying track conditions. It's all about squeezing out every last hundredth of a second. I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
A tenth of a second can be the difference between making Q3 or getting knocked out or
Right.
grabbing a podium versus finishing outside the points.
Huge difference in F1.
Massive. And these hundredths, they're found in these meticulous details, like, say, at a high-speed track like Monza, maybe a slightly different floor profile cuts drag on those long straights. That gives them a crucial top speed edge, even if it means sacrificing a tiny bit of downforce in the chicanes.
Okay, makes sense. Trade-offs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then flip it for a twisty street circuit like Monaco or somewhere technical like Imola, every single bit of downforce counts. So a floor optimized for maximum grip, maximum stability through those complex corner sequences, that's absolutely essential. This constant reevaluation for each specific race, that's the game they're playing now. It's this continuous hunt for perfection, knowing there isn't one best car overall, but rather a car that's optimally set up for that Sunday afternoon, under those specific conditions.
That level of detail is it's incredible. The F1 blogs discussion even mentions that the Imola floor specifically has proved better recently, and they expect it to be more effective for the upcoming Italian Grand Prix at Monza.
Right, because of its characteristics.
And get this, it's even suggested that on a Friday practice, they might actually run both floor specifications back-to-back.
Seriously, both.
Yeah, just to fine-tune their data, confirm which setup is genuinely the most effective for that particular weekend. That's a level of dedication that really puts the micro-optimization, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. They're gathering real-time circuit-specific data to make a decision for that race, not trying to find a setting for the whole rest of the season. They're literally confirming what their simulations hinted at with real-world empirical data, sometimes right up until the last possible moment.
Wow.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this really is the absolute essence of modern F1 development. It's understanding that there's no single best setup. There's just an optimal configuration for every unique environment they encounter. They're trying to put the whole mechanical set, the floor, wings, suspension, all the intricate settings together in the absolute best possible way, all just to gain even a tiny, almost invisible advantage.
Like a master craftsman picking the exact right tool.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Choosing the exact right chisel for one particular, highly specialized cut. He knows a slightly different tool, while generally good, might not be perfect for that precise moment, that precise piece of wood. This granular, almost obsessive approach, that's what separates the top teams. It lets them perform consistently, right at the peak. It's this ongoing battle against the clock where every hundredth matters.
And it brings us to a really fascinating point about why the floor, specifically the floor, is such a massive game changer these days. Our sources from F1 blogs highlight that while decisions about, say, the front wing seem relatively clear-cut for the team.
Yeah, maybe more localized effects.
Right, perhaps more predictable.
Yeah.
The floor introduces a substantial change. That's the phrase used in the car's overall behavior. So this isn't just a minor tweak. It fundamentally alters how the car interacts with the air and, crucially, how it interacts with the track itself. It really flags the floor as being way more sensitive, more impactful, and, more complex under these current aero rules. But why? Why is the floor so much more critical than, say, the front wing?
Yeah, that is a crucial question. So the front wing, it kind of initiates the airflow, right? Sets up the journey for the air over the rest of the car. It operates in relatively clean air, which makes its effects somewhat more predictable, as you said.
Okay.
The floor, though, that's a different beast altogether. It's where a huge chunk of the car's downforce comes from, mainly through what we call ground effect.
Ah, yes, ground effect.
Imagine trying to push like a suction cup onto a table. That's essentially what the car's floor is trying to do with the track. As air accelerates through these carefully sculpted tunnels and diffusers underneath the car, it creates this powerful low-pressure zone that literally sucks the car down onto the track surface.
Right, pulling it down.
And this effect is incredibly potent, generates massive downforce, but it's also incredibly sensitive. A tiny change, like a millimeter change in ride height, can have a huge, disproportionate impact on the airflow. And therefore, on the downforce, the stability, the whole balance of the car.
So if the floor is basically this giant suction cup,
Yeah.
any change to its shape or how close it runs to the ground would just drastically alter that suction force, right? It makes total sense why it would be such a substantial change to the car's whole character.
Precisely. A substantial change in the floor really means a substantial change in the car's fundamental character. Its balance between front and rear grip, how it behaves in high-speed corners versus low-speed ones, its overall stability under braking, acceleration, cornering, everything. It is the absolute beating heart of the current aerodynamic regulations. Far, far more influential than the front wing in dictating the car's overall performance window. And that's why teams pour so much time, so much money, so many resources into optimizing this specific area.
So the development process for this kind of intricate circuit-specific optimization must be incredibly rigorous then. Our sources describe this meticulous multi-stage cycle.
Yes.
Involves loads of simulation work in wind tunnels.
Right, physical models in controlled airflow.
And also in computational fluid dynamics, CFD. Which, for anyone unfamiliar, is basically a virtual wind tunnel running on supercomputers, yeah.
Exactly. Simulating how air flows over every single surface.
It lets engineers digitally test thousands of design ideas, wings, floors, diffusers, predicting how they'll perform aerodynamically before they even think about building a physical part.
It's incredibly powerful, allows for really rapid iteration, but as we'll get to, it's only half the story.
Right, not the whole picture.
Exactly. These simulation tools, they give them a starting point, a kind of theoretical optimum. But then after all these digital and physical simulations comes the real test, real world running on the track. This whole cycle is aimed at finding those tiny marginal gains, those critical little bit more bits of performance that can make all the difference come Sunday afternoon.
That relentless search.
It's a relentless search for efficiency, for understanding, and ultimately for speed. And that search for efficiency, that's where the complexity really bites. The simulations give them a theoretical optimum, sure, but in perfectly consistent, controlled conditions. Then you take it to a real track.
And reality hits.
And that's where reality often diverges, sometimes dramatically, from the theory.
So what does this all mean for the car actually on the track? Is this all connected to the car's ride height, how it handles hitting curbs, its overall platform?
Yeah.
It feels like those aspects are just super important for performance, right? We hear so much about teams fighting porpoising, that bouncing.
Yeah, aerodynamic bouncing.
Or not being able to run the car low enough without bottoming out, which kills their ground effect.
Absolutely. Modern Formula One, it is almost entirely about understanding the car's ride height and its overall platform. It's not just about how low you can physically run the car, but how you manage that height dynamically, second by second, in every single phase of a lap.
The platform being its stability.
Exactly. The car's platform refers to the stability and consistency of its aerodynamic setup in all conditions, braking hard into a turn, accelerating out, cornering flat out, even hitting bumps or curbs. A stable platform means predictable downforce, and that is absolutely crucial for driver confidence. And ultimately, driver confidence equals lap time.
And the complexity of managing that dynamically must be just immense.
Yeah.
A wind tunnel, like you said, it's consistent control of the static environment, but on a live track, the car's height is constantly changing, literally millisecond by millisecond.
Precisely. It behaves differently on a straight where it might naturally run lower because of the aero load pressing down.
Right.
Compared to how it behaves through different types of corners, high speed, low speed, long sweepers, tight hairpins. Each puts different loads on the car. And specifically, its height and attitude, its pitch and roll will change drastically at corner entry under braking and then at corner exit under acceleration.
Mm-hmm.
The source we looked at, F1 Blogs, vividly describes this whole dynamic scenario as a huge mess, or in the original Spanish, un lío muy gordo, which really conveys this sense of monumental, almost overwhelming chaos. That gives you a real feel for the scale of the engineering challenge here.
So it's like a moving target, constantly fluctuating, changing its aerodynamic profile from moment to moment. That sounds like an absolute nightmare to try and optimize, not just once, but for, what, 19, 20 different tracks every year?
It is, truly. When you hit a curb, boom, the car's height changes instantly. When you brake super hard, the nose dives, the rear comes up. When you accelerate hard out of a corner, the rear squats down, the nose lifts up.
All changing the floor gap.
Exactly. All these dynamic movements constantly alter the gap between the car's floor and the track surface, which in turn changes the aerodynamic forces acting on the car, sometimes drastically, sometimes subtly. Teams are trying to predict, understand, and somehow control these minute split-second changes across an entire lap and then across multiple laps in changing conditions, tire wear.
It's mind-boggling.
It's like trying to hit a moving target with a weapon that's constantly changing its own calibration. That's the multi-dimensional puzzle these teams face. It really underscores the incredible engineering, the data analysis, the simulation power behind every single F1 car. It's not just about building a fast car in a straight line anymore. It's about
Yeah.
building one that can consistently perform optimally through all these dynamic states, through every twist, every turn, every bump, every curb.
Which brings us neatly to how Aston Martin themselves have been navigating these incredibly complex, often pretty turbulent waters. Because the reality, as highlighted in F1 blogs, is that Aston Martin seems to have had maybe a harder time than some of the other teams in truly getting their heads around and optimizing this complex dance of car height and platform dynamics.
Yeah, and that's not necessarily a criticism, more an observation of just how immense, almost existential this challenge is in modern F1 car design. It's a puzzle that some teams just manage to solve quicker than others.
Right.
And our source, it vividly recalls a time just a few Grand Prix ago around the Miami race weekend, wasn't it?
Yeah, I remember that period.
When Aston Martin was consistently right at the back of the grid, often being literally the last ones among the competitive runners. That was such a stark contrast to how they started the season, remember? They came out of the blocks really strong.
Oh yeah, podiums early on. Then suddenly.
Suddenly, yeah. It really highlights the struggles they were having then to understand their car, to unlock its potential, and crucially to stop its performance falling off a cliff in certain conditions or just as the weekend wore on. They were clearly seeing a disconnect between what their simulation tools were predicting and what the car was actually doing out on the track. That dreaded lack of correlation.
Yes, that period was very telling. Almost frustrating to watch as a fan, seeing that potential seemingly evaporate. But what's truly significant and encouraging is the current positive trajectory they seem to be on. There's been a clear evolution, right? A tangible turnaround.
Definitely looks that way.
Aston Martin is now regularly getting into Q3 in qualifying, consistently scoring points, often challenging for, the top 6 positions. This represents a really tangible, measurable step forward, moving from that place of real difficulty and inconsistency to becoming consistent contenders for strong points finishes.
Which is huge in the midfield battle.
Absolutely. It's a real testament to the hard work obviously going on behind the scenes at Silverstone.
And the so what here, the deeper meaning, is profound. While, yeah, scoring points, maybe moving up a place in the Constructors' Championship, that's all good for this year's bottom line. But the real significance lies in something much deeper, much more fundamental for their future prospects.
Okay.
The F1 blog's discussion reveals that the team is finally beginning to understand and, critically, beginning to translate their learnings from their simulation tools, the wind tunnel, the CFD, the driver in the loop simulator onto the actual track. This is what we call correlation, getting the virtual world to match the real world.
Correlation. That magic word in F1 development. So this isn't just about the immediate race results improving. It's about them building this foundational understanding, about validating their entire development process from start to finish.
Precisely.
The source describes this as the team finally beginning to speak the same language across all their different development tools and their real-world track performance.
That's a great way to put it.
And this crucial correlation, it's presented as the key, the fundamental achievement for the team's future. That's not just a big shift. That sounds like a complete paradigm shift for their whole approach to developing the car.
It is, honestly, its importance cannot be overstated in F1. Think about it. You have these incredibly powerful, incredibly expensive simulation tools generating terabytes of data, predicting how the car should perform. But if what those tools predict doesn't actually match what the car does out on the tarmac,
Then it's useless data.
then all that simulation work is essentially useless, yeah. You're developing completely in the dark. The team effectively has a broken feedback loop. It's like they're flying blind.
Right, I get that.
Imagine you're baking a really complicated cake, right? You've got this super detailed recipe that's your simulations. But if your oven's temperature gauge is completely off, or maybe your ingredients aren't quite what the recipe assumes, your cake's going to turn out flat or burnt.
Yeah.
That's your poor track performance.
Bag cake.
You'd have zero correlation between your recipe and the actual result. Aston Martin, for a little while there, they were getting flat cakes.
Okay.
Now, it seems they've recalibrated their oven, their measurements are precise, and their recipe is consistently yielding the delicious fast cake they planned.
Finally getting it right.
When the simulations, the CFD, the wind tunnel data, and the track data all start to align, all start telling the same story, it means they finally truly understand their car. Its strengths, its weaknesses, how it responds. They can then make informed, effective decisions about which development path to take. This correlation problem, or the lack of it, it's plagued many F1 teams over the years. It costs millions, and as F1 Blogs points out, it often ends up costing some people their jobs. For Aston Martin to finally bridge that gap is absolutely monumental. It signifies real maturity in their engineering processes.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting then. This newfound understanding, this ability to actually correlate their digital models with physical reality. It's not just about optimizing the current car for the next few races. It sounds like it's a fundamental foundation for something potentially much bigger, much more consistent next year, and crucially, beyond into 2026.
That's exactly it.
This is the bedrock upon which their future success has to be built, right?
Precisely.
Yeah.
And this newfound understanding, this reliable development process, makes next year, and especially the huge reset of the 2026 regulations, look even more promising for Aston Martin, even despite the intense focus needed for the current season. A significant reason for optimism about Aston Martin's future, mentioned in the F1 blogs discussion, is the fact that many of the heavyweights, the top designers and engineers,
The big guns.
yeah, we're talking about individuals of the caliber of, say, an Adrian Newey, though not specifically him at Red Bull, but people like Luca Ferbato and Dan Fallows at Aston Martin. They are already fully focused on the 2026 car. They are dedicating their primary mental and technical horsepower to the next generation of F1 regulations.
Wow. So the implication there is pretty profound. The current car stepped forward, this consistent move into Q3, scoring points regularly, that's been achieved without the dedicated full-time focus of these absolute top-tier talents.
Seems that way, yes.
Because they're already deep into directing their efforts towards the next major regulation change. That suggests a really strong underlying development process is now in place, and huge potential for even greater gains when these experts eventually turn their full attention back to a specific car and its immediate challenges.
It really does speak volumes, doesn't it? About the depth of talent they've recruited, but also about this newfound organizational understanding within Aston Martin. That's a powerful thought, that they're improving significantly even while their strategic minds are already years ahead, planning for the future.
Yeah, it really is.
And the F1 blogs report, it recounts that difficult period for the team over the last year and a half, where components developed back at the factory simply didn't work when they got to the track. They were using the Mercedes wind tunnel at the time, which initially back in early 2023 gave them good correlation, remember.
Yeah.
That allowed them to start that season so strongly.
Right, the correlation worked initially.
But then, as they tried to push the development envelope further, everything they produced just stopped working effectively on track. That fundamental lack of correlation reared its head again, and it ultimately cost some people their jobs, which is a stark reminder of how incredibly cutthroat F1 is, the immense pressure to deliver results.
Yeah, brutal.
The really good news, though, as the source unequivocally states, is that that trend has ended. That period of disconnect is over. This means they've moved past that critical, potentially crippling hurdle. They've fixed the systemic flaw in their development pipeline.
So this whole situation, it paints a much better picture for their future, doesn't it? It demonstrates that a really fundamental shift has occurred within the team's core development capabilities. Imagine a team improving significantly, building real momentum, while its star players and long-term strategists are already deep in practice for the next season's totally different rule changes. It speaks volumes about the depth of talent, sure, but more importantly, this newfound understanding within the whole organization. They've found a way to make their current processes work reliably, even without the full, undivided attention of their most experienced designers on this year's car, because those foundational issues of correlation have finally been addressed.
Yes, and that is such a critical point for any team aiming for long-term success in F1. If your core development tools, your wind tunnel, your CFD, your simulator aren't giving you accurate, reliable results, it's a systemic failure. It can derail an entire multi-million-pound project. The fact that Aston Martin seems to have fixed this means they now have, hopefully, a reliable pipeline for innovation going forward.
They can trust their data again.
Exactly. They can trust their data again, which is absolutely indispensable when you're faced with designing a completely new car under completely new regulations, like in 2026. They're no longer fighting with their own tools. They seem to be working in harmony with them now.
But, okay, as we look towards 2026, it's clearly not all going to be smooth sailing. There's a massive, almost unprecedented challenge waiting for every single team on the grid. Our sources from F1 blogs clearly indicate that the upcoming 2026 Formula One regulations are widely expected to be, well, a big mess.
Ah, yeah, on Leo Gordo.
That phrase, again, it conveys this sense of monumental, almost insurmountable chaos and challenge, doesn't it? From both an engineering and a competitive standpoint.
Absolutely. This isn't just a minor tweak to the rulebook, it's a complete overhaul. Both the power unit and the aerodynamic rules are changing fundamentally.
Right, which raises an important question, I think, for all of us following the sport.
Hmm.
Are we maybe in danger of oversimplifying the immense complexity of achieving F1 success by fixating too much on individual design geniuses?
The star designer effect.
Yeah, when really so many other pieces of the puzzle need to fall perfectly into place.
Yeah.
The F1 blog's discussion voices this significant fear that maybe too much emphasis, too much hope is being pinned on singular figures like, say, an Adrian Newey joining a team.
Right, the idea that one person can magically fix everything.
Exactly. While these individuals are undeniably important, hugely influential with their creative vision, F1 blogs rightly points out there are many other fundamental factors and elements that absolutely must align perfectly for success in 2026.
You need the right team structure, the right budget management under the cap, the right leadership making the tough calls, the right driver lineup giving consistent, useful feedback, and crucially, the right operational efficiency, getting upgrades to the track quickly and reliably. All of that has to work together seamlessly.
Yeah.
No single individual, no matter how brilliant they are, can possibly solve all of those complex problems alone. It's just too big.
It's so easy to look for that single hero figure, isn't it? To think, oh, if they just hire that person, everything will suddenly be fine.
The silver bullet mentality.
Yeah. But F1 is just such an intricate team sport, isn't it? Such a complex, interconnected ecosystem of hundreds, sometimes thousands of people. And the scale of the change coming in 2026 is apparently so profound that our sources even include some pretty dramatic speculation.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Like the initial phase of the 2026 season could be so chaotic, so challenging, that the first 3 races might even need to be held behind closed doors.
Wow, behind closed doors. Seriously?
Yeah, with only the teams allowed access. This isn't just some casual remark. It apparently shows the level of genuine concern among some insiders about what might happen initially.
That's quite something. And it's being discussed because of concerns about just unpredictable outcomes, potential safety issues maybe, or just cars not working properly.
All of the above, potentially. Imagine the sheer engineering task. Completely new engine regulations focusing on a much higher electric power component, that 50-50 split between the combustion engine and electric power.
Right, massive change there.
New sustainable fuels coming in, and completely new chassis and aerodynamic regulations, possibly including active aero elements, which is a whole new ballgame.
It's a completely clean slate, a true reset for everyone.
Yeah.
And while that offers immense opportunity for a team that interprets the rules cleverly and gets it right from the start, it also presents a colossal, maybe unprecedented risk for those who misinterpret the rules or just struggle fundamentally with the new technical philosophy.
Getting it wrong could be disastrous.
Oh, yeah. The fundamental concepts of car design are going to shift. It's not just evolution from the current cars. It feels more like a revolution in how these cars will generate speed and downforce.
It's a testament, really, to the sport's constant evolution and the incredible challenge that lies ahead for every single team, from the very top right down to the bottom of the grid. But even with all that slightly scary talk of a big mess, the overall sentiment for the future, at least according to F1 blogs, is still described as, well, positive.
Tiene buena pinta.
Exactly. Tiene buena pinta. It looks good, or
Yep.
it has good prospects, which kind of underscores a cautious optimism among the F1 community, doesn't it?
It does. It means that while everyone acknowledges the enormous hurdles, the potential for initial chaos, maybe some unreliable cars early on, there's still this underlying belief that the sport and the incredible engineering talent within it will ultimately find a way forward. They always do. And they'll continue to push the boundaries of technology and performance under these new rules.
Yeah, F1 has always navigated huge regulation changes throughout its long history, hasn't it? And while there are always initial struggles, maybe one team gets a big jump.
Like Braun in 2009.
Exactly. The engineering talent in the sport inevitably rises to the occasion eventually. The challenge of 2026 will undoubtedly shuffle the competitive order, at least initially. That seems almost guaranteed.
Oh, for sure.
But it also provides this unique opportunity for teams who get it right from the very outset to make really significant gains and maybe even establish a new period of dominance.
It's a massive high-stakes gamble for every single team principal and technical director on that grid right now. Huge pressure.
So wrapping this all up, what does this all mean for us, the fans watching, and for Aston Martin's journey specifically? We've kind of journeyed from that initial perception of Aston Martin's puzzling, maybe inconsistent development earlier in the season, to understanding it now as this highly sophisticated, circuit-specific optimization strategy. It's not about being lost or indecisive at all.
No, it's about surgical precision.
Exactly. A relentless pursuit of every hundredth of a second. We've seen how critical the dynamic management of the car's ride height and its overall platform is. And that essential aha moment seems to be that Aston Martin is finally correlating their simulation data with their on-track performance.
That fundamental shift.
That fundamental shift, meaning they're finally speaking the same language across their digital tools and the physical reality of the track. And while their top technical talent is already looking way ahead to the completely new 2026 car, the current car's progress is actually a really powerful testament to their newfound understanding and evidence of a more reliable development pipeline being put in place, even as this big mess of new regulations looms large on the horizon for everyone.
And for you, the F1 enthusiast listening, this deep dive from F1 Blogs hopefully gives you a much richer, more nuanced understanding, an appreciation of the incredible strategic depth and the sheer engineering complexity behind every single decision made on the grid.
Yeah, it's way more than just driving fast.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's not just about raw speed. It's this relentless pursuit of micro-optimizations. It's a constant battle for accurate correlation between the virtual world and the real world. And it's the immense task of designing a car that can perform perfectly in an environment that's constantly changing around it. Hopefully, it allows you to look beyond just the immediate headlines and appreciate that intricate dance between engineers, vast amounts of data, driver feedback, and the unforgiving reality of the racetrack itself.
And, this isn't just about F1, is it? It's kind of a powerful reminder that in any really complex system, what looks like uncertainty or even confusion from the outside might actually be a highly adaptive, highly precise form of problem solving going on underneath.
That's a great point.
It's about breaking down a huge, maybe overwhelming challenge into tiny, manageable, context-specific optimizations.
So thinking about all that, considering the immense challenges we know are coming with the 2026 regulations, and that caution against focusing only on individual star designers, which team do you, our listener, think is actually best positioned to truly navigate that chaos? Who might emerge on top when the dust settles?
Yeah, good question.
What often overlooked factor? Maybe it's team cohesion. Maybe it's budgetary discipline under the cap facing new rules. Maybe it's unparalleled adaptability and using driver feedback effectively, what might prove to be the real key to success when everything changes and that playing field is totally reset. Something to think about.
Definitely something to mull over. That's all for this deep dive. We really hope you enjoyed unpacking these fascinating insights from F1 Blogs with us today. It's just incredible, isn't it, to think about all the layers of strategy and engineering hidden just beneath the surface of every single F1 race.
It really is.
So if you appreciated this in-depth analysis and you want more deep dives into the world of F1 and maybe other complex topics, make sure you subscribe to the F1 Blogs channel right now if you haven't already so you don't miss our next deep dive into another captivating subject. Until then, keep digging, keep learning, and we'll see you next time.